Chaz Kangas from Go 95.3 here, and I am joined by the man behind the brand new game that launched this week, River City Girls. It is setting the new standard for beat-em-up games in 2019. It is on the Switch, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and Steam. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Tierny. Adam, how you doing?
Good. Thank you so much. That's quite an introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Oh, you more than have lived up to it already with the fantastic River City games. It just dropped. I played through up to the first boss last night, and I did the catch and retrieve food side quest. And it is fantastic from top to bottom, from the story to the voice acting to the look and to the feel of it. And just as a fan of like arcade beat 'em ups growing up, I mean, we just had the Minnesota State Fair out here, which the arcade has the Simpsons and the Ninja Turtles and the X-Men and all the classic beat 'em up arcade games, which as fun as they are, have always, especially in later generations, it's kind of hard to get that exact arcade. I just got done eating pizza, drinking soda out of a big refillable plastic glass feel to it, and I just want to keep putting quarters in and beating things up with my friends. But this one absolutely does it. So what was the event horizon for River City Girls for you?
Oh, well, yeah, thanks again so much. So, I mean, I think WayForward, the company that I work for, we tend to kind of be known for taking retro brands and kind of reimagining them. So, you know, River City Ransom on the NES version especially, it had some arcade versions too, for the series, was always one of those games that we really wanted to get our hands on. And kind of the stars just aligned. We happened to be talking with Arc System Works, who owned the brand now. They bought it a couple of years ago. And so we had this crazy pitch where, there was this Super Nintendo game in Japan that had the girlfriends playable, and they were just really awesome. I mean, they're really kick-ass, but they're also just very petite, and, it was right up our alley. So we basically pitched, hey, can we do a game like that, a game focused on those girls again? And Arc was super into it, so they ended up being our co-publisher. They're publishing in Japan, and then WayForward's publishing in U.S. and Europe. But yeah, they immediately loved the idea, and the art we put together, working with all of the high-res art you see is by this artist named Priscilla. She just has such a good design sense and fashion sense and all that. So I think just everybody just immediately fell in love with kind of our take on the characters and the humor and the story, and then from there we just kind of jammed for about a year, and now it's finally out.
Excellent. And what I like about it is there is the option for a layered sort of combat with the different moves and the combos to put together. But there's also the level if you just want to play the game as, the fun, a button mashing thing. It seems to be very open for any sort of type of player. So in your mind, what do you think makes for a great beat 'em up, and why do you think River City Girls delivers on that?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we were really conscious of from the beginning. And so I did a kind of the high-level story and design stuff, and I had Bannon Rudis was my assistant director. He was kind of the combat guy, and he actually had worked on a River City game right before this. It was the Kickstarter River City Underground. So he knew the characters and knew the combat, but I think that was a deeper game. That was kind of more for, or deeper in terms of how you do the inputs and how challenging it is to pull things off. It was more of a hardcore gamer game. So we knew from the beginning, we wanted to make it so that anybody who wants to pull off a cool move can. So basically every move in the game never goes really any deeper than pressing a direction and pressing one button. And I think that that's a really good approach that you see in, Arc did it in their Dragon Ball fighting game. You see it definitely in Smash Brothers, where you've got these crazy over-the-top moves, but it's always just one direction and one button for the most part. And I love that approach because you can put that in the hand of a 5 or 6 year old, and they'll run around kicking ass and have a good time. But then you put it in the hand of somebody who's a more expert brawler, and they're going to do all the comboing. They're going to knock people into the air and then slam them back out, and come up with all the interesting ways to kind of chain it together. So that was kind of the thought from the beginning. And also, we knew that reinventing this brand with this new kind of visual, this new focus on different characters, we were going to be hitting a wider audience. So we weren't just playing to the established Brawler fans and the established River City fans. We wanted to invite new people, and so knowing that, it was really important that the combat is something that pretty much anybody can get into.
Stellar. And I like the term you're using there with the reinvention, because it really is, in this era where there are so many sort of reboots and some things that could just be seen as a nostalgia grab and things that could just be seen as a bring back. This really feels like such an organic fully based, fully created, fully realized new vision. And so looking at your career, you also wrote an X-Men game. You've worked on things for other different known like mainstream entities and properties. How different is it doing something within something of an expected franchise like X-Men versus doing something where you're given the reign to fully reinvent something like here with River City Girls?
It really, I think, comes down to kind of who your publisher partner is or who the licensor is. And so, I won't name names, but I've been on some games where they're a lot more critical on what you can and can't do as far as the brand, and they don't want anything that gets weird or really strays from it. So, those are the games that you kind of just, grin and bear it and you get through and you have kind of an okay game. But all of the crazy stuff, all of the really over-the-top little touches in River City Girls, those are the things, WayForward games will usually propose that on any game, but it's when we have a really good publishing partner like Arc System works on this, where they're just willing to run with it, where you get to keep all that cool stuff in there. So yeah, really, it's just like it's in big part to them and just them believing in us and letting us run with it. And especially with the River City brand, we've only had a few of them in the U.S., but in Japan, this is huge. Like, I think they've had over 50 games it's called the Kunio-kun series in Japan. And what's weird about this one in particular is they almost all look the same. So like the last few games still use those Nintendo-style sprites. So it's kind of like really doubly big that we're able to reinvent the visuals, change the way everything looks, change the way things play, add all the VO. Like they were really supportive, Arc was, as the brand owner, to let us go out on a ledge like this. And yeah, that's all we need is we just need to go ahead and we need somebody who believes in us. And when we get that, that's usually when we get our crazier games like this. Nice.
And another thing I really liked about it is how much of it makes sense with it. The reason the students are fighting is in the very first level when the principal says that you know what to do, and then you're suddenly high school student fighting other high school students instead of just randomly you're being attacked by someone. And things like that, and little logistical things are like when the music changes, it's because someone else is playing a boombox in the background. Like, that's just like high school too. So, and which brings me to bring up the music itself. And we're a radio station, so music was going to happen at some point. I really, really dug the music of it. And on this too, you're credited as also writing the lyrics for the theme. And so I'm curious, when you're doing a project like this, at what point during production does music come into it and writing the lyrics to a theme of the game? Is it usually in the beginning to give you sort of a base for a ground, or is it something that happens like as it's closer to completion?
I think, the lyrics, that was on the tail end of production, and it was mostly just kind of out of necessity. It was just, I'll do that because I was just, available to do it. It could have been the singer or the musician that did it, although I wrote them pretty goofy lyrics, so I think that kind of makes it on brand. But definitely, like, for us, one of the major things I always focus on games is making sure that the first things you see and experience and the last things you see and experience when you beat the game are some of the best things in the game, because that's going to stand out to players. You only get one chance to make a first impression, and then especially if somebody's writing a review or if they're going to tell their friends about it, the last thing they see when they think, okay, I've beaten the game, those are such critical moments to just absolutely nail. So that's why, when you boot it up, it's just like right off the bat, you hear that rock music start and you hear the singing by Christina V, and you see the anime style intro. Like, we really wanted to just make it super exciting right from the get-go. And then, obviously without spoiling it, but with the ending, the last cinematic is kind of the most ambitious one. And then also the end credit theme is very wacky. And so we really wanted to do something that just like had these nice end caps to it. So that was kind of thinking behind that. But then just in general, we knew music was going to be really critical in this. So most of the soundtrack, and definitely if you're interested in this game, go check out the soundtrack. It's a phenomenal soundtrack. It's got 50 songs. Most of them are by this amazing musician named Megan McDuffie. She did all the level songs, all the cinematic songs, and most of the songs that you hear just playing low-key as you're playing through, and they've got full vocals, that's her singing. And she just has this amazing synth-pop style and these kind of like very 1980s style vocals that just totally just brought the game to life in a way that you don't hear in most games. Like, you might hear one vocal song at the title screen or something, but I always love the few times I've seen games where you just hear just straight up low-key full vocal songs in the background, because it just adds such a crazy, unexpected level of polish. And Megan just knocked it out of the park with that. So yeah, right from the beginning, almost as important as the combat and the visuals was really nailing that musical style and kind of giving it its own identity.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'll say within the first 5 minutes of playing, I realized how fast my heart was beating, and I think that's part of the arcade experience. So this has been fantastic. Once again, thank you so much for this. River City Girls is out now on PS4, Xbox One, Steam, and Nintendo Switch. Adam Tierny, thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.